Federalist 12, Part 6. In addition to all this, there is in the nature of sovereign power an impatience of control that disposes those who are invested with exercise of it to look with an evil eye upon all external attempts to restrain or direct its operations. From this spirit, it happens that in every political association, which is formed upon the principle of uniting in a common interest a number of lesser sovereignties, there will be found a kind of eccentric tendency in the subordinate or inferior orbs, by the operation of which there will be a perpetual effort in each to fly off from the common center. This tendency is not difficult to be accounted for. It has its origin in the love of power. Power controlled or abridged is almost always the rival and enemy of that power by which it is controlled or abridged. This simple position will teach us how little reason there is to expect that the persons entrusted with the administration of the affairs of the particular members of the Confederacy, when he says particular, he means individual states, will at all times be ready with perfect good humor and unbiased regard to the public weal to execute the resolutions or decrees of the general authority. The reverse of this results from the constitution of man. Notice he does not trust any man with power. Publius, all the three authors of the Federalist, they know that man is corruptible. So he says it is crazy to think that you can give power to man or group of men, and if you do not have systems of checks and balances and separation of powers, for them to expect that they will not violate it. And notice up there when he talks about orbs, subordinate and inferior orbs, by the operation of which there will be a perpetual effort in each to fly off from the common center. Back then, they were right at the beginning of scientific revolution. Remember the works of Newton, Isaac Newton, where they all really, really respected and admired. Galileo, Kepler, all these people who had come up with the new idea of the sun being at the center of the solar system and all the planets traveling in their orbs at regular levels, and you can expect to know where these planets were. So everything would be known by calculation. That's why they use some of this language here in the Federalist. They say there are some people who want to bring convulsion, to bring confusion, and mess up this real beautiful system that we have, where the center, the national government, will know how much power it has, and all the states will know how much power they have, and they work and interact with one another. That's why he uses this language. Then the next paragraph, if therefore the measures of the Confederacy cannot be executed without the intervention of the particular administrations, there will be little prospect of their being executed at all. the rulers of the respective members, whether they have a constitutional right to do it or not, will undertake to judge of the propriety of the measures themselves. They will consider the conformity of the thing proposed or required to their immediate interests or aims, the momentary conveniences or inconveniences that would attend its adoption. All this will be done, and in a spirit of interested and suspicious scrutiny, without that knowledge of the national circumstances and reasons of state, which is essential to a right judgment, and with that strong predilection in favor of local objects which can hardly fail to mislead the decision. The same process must be repeated in every member of which the body is constituted, and the execution of the plans framed by the councils of the whole will always fluctuate on the discretion of ill-informed and prejudiced opinion of every part. So he says, if you leave everything that needs to be done by the states to the states without being able to punish them or penalize them or penalize its citizens, then they're just going to do whatever they please, whenever it's convenient for them. And this is not going to be a government that you can count on, a government that you can have confidence in. The same process must be repeated in every member of which the body is constituted, and the execution of the plans framed by the councils of the whole will always fluctuate on the discretion of ill-informed and prejudiced opinion of every part. Those who have been conversant in the proceedings of popular assemblies, who have seen how difficult it often is when there is no exterior pressure of circumstances to bring them to harmonious resolutions on important points, will readily conceive how impossible it must be to induce a number of such assemblies, deliberating at a distance from each other at different times and under different impressions, long to cooperate in the same views and pursuits. So again, he says, those people, he says, that have been well conversant, those people who have had experience, that's what it means, who have been around the workings of government, know that if you leave the states to themselves, they will not do what needs to be done at the right time. You cannot count on them to do the right thing at the right time. In our case, the concurrence of 13 distinct sovereign wills is requisite under the Confederation to complete execution of every important measure that proceeds from the Union. It has happened as was to have been seen. It has happened as was to have been foreseen. The measures of the Union have not been executed, and the delinquencies of the states have step by step matured themselves to an extreme which has at length arrested all the wheels of national government and brought them to an awful stand. Congress at this time scarcely possesses the means of keeping up the forms of administration, till the states can have time to agree upon a more substantial substitute for the present shadow of a federal government. Things did not come to this desperate extremity at once. The causes which have been specified produced at first only unequal and disproportionate degrees of compliance with the requisitions of the Union. The greater deficiencies of some states furnished the pretext of example and the temptation of interests to the complying or to the least delinquent states. Why should we do more in proportion than those who are embarked with us in the same political voyage? Why should we consent to bear more than our proper share of the common burden? There were suggestions which human selfishness could not withstand, and which even speculative men who looked forward to remote consequences could not without hesitation combat. Each state, yielding to the persuasive voice of immediate interest or convenience, has successively withdrawn its support till the frail and tottering edifice seems ready to fall upon our heads and to crush us beneath its ruins. So again, it says at the beginning of the paragraph, for every important thing to be done, the 13 states need to okay it, to say yes. Remember I said you could not add amendments to the Articles of Confederation unless the vote was unanimous, unless all the 13 states accepted. And he says, look at what has happened to us. We can't do anything because there's always one or two states that stop the wheel of government from turning and doing its job. They will not agree to what's important and what needs to be done. Different states will come up with excuses saying, well, if I pay what you're asking me, will the other states do the same? And he says experience has shown us that this has happened in the past, and it will happen to the future, and sooner or later states will say, we don't want to be part of this confederacy, and leave it, and then we will be in a bad state. That's why we need this new constitution to make the strong union, so different states do not back out of their commitment.